Bill, how would you describe the outside linebacker room right now?
I think we got a good mix. It's a lot of youth, but a good mix of guys, good mix of personalities, and a good mix of skill sets right now.
When you came off of last year, obviously it's a group effort, but how much did you say we need to change things or we need to keep things the same in that room?
I think when I looked at last year and I went back and looked at the film, I thought that there was a process in place that we obviously need to continue on. Obviously, if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. So there's a couple of things that we think we need to change or adjust, maybe more so than change. But I think from a personnel standpoint, we got good guys in the room that can get the job done.
How much of it was you looking at it and saying we can develop these guys, or we need to bring in help?
Well, I think it's the development part is true. That's real. That's what I said about the youth in the room. There's good youth. You got a couple of veteran guys like Josh and Travon. So I think it's a good balance. I do think everybody needs to take a step forward. And right now I'm pleased with the work ethic that's been shown and the progress that's made through the spring. But the spring is the spring. And guys got to take the next month and still take a step forward and come back in August ready to go. Late July, August, ready to go.
What position does Trayvon Walker play?
He plays multiple positions.
Okay.
Yes, he does. He's an outside linebacker is where he starts, and then from there, that's part of his versatility, and it comes down to Coach Caldwell and how he feels. He best used Trayvon's skills, but also on a week-to-week thing. You look at the opposition, you look at where your matchups are, and how you can create favorable matchups.
How much sense that he's feeling a lot more comfortable?
I am. I got one. Thank you. Yeah, I am. I do think he's getting. I do think, and I can tell you this: like the second year in the scheme, just the scheme part. When a rookie comes in, you figure the draft's like towards the end of April, and then they usually have a week or so, and then they come in. It's really only like a 5-week window to try to teach a guy everything, and then the young guy that comes in, the veterans had already been here, and so they not only have 5 weeks, but then they're also like four or 5 weeks behind the veterans that are here. So it was a big step for him to take. What we're able to do, like what I still, we still have to go over the scheme type stuff, but I can spend the time that I have with him. I can allocate that time differently this year than I had to do last year. I guess the best way to put it.
How much of
learning the moves and the counter moves that he needs in an offseason, or is that a 2-3 year deal?
Well, I think you can learn them. I do think it takes time to attempt to perfect them and to be more efficient in those things. And so the time part, I think, you should see a step, and then you should see another step because he has, a lot of God-given ability, but it's a process and it takes hard work. And that's the one thing I really like about Travon is that, he is his own toughest critic. Like he's hard on himself. And he's very determined. He's a hard worker. So it's a balance of all that stuff. But for me, it just takes a keen eye and be able to point a couple things out to him on a regular basis for the muscle memory part to see, this. You stack one day. Like everybody uses, the statement of you stack a day after a day after a day after a day, and I do think that's a reality for Travon right now. Every day, just trying to get a little bit better, and then when you look at the course of multiple days together, then you should see a jump, because you're not going to see a big jump one day to the next day. It's going to be you put those small increments together, and then the key right there would be you don't take a little step back. You keep trying to take inch forward, inch forward, inch forward. And because like to your point, like in the NFL, the difference between pressures and sacks and those type of things, or even sometimes it's just, the pressures will eventually turn into sacks because there's a bunch of things that go into that. But for a guy like Travon, difference between getting the quarterback in 2.5 seconds to 2.8 seconds, like, those 0.3 of a second, that's where technique and further development of his skill and his body, which, the strength coaches do, the trainers do, and we work on in our individual period. But he takes small steps, tie a bunch of them together, and see where it goes. But I think he's on the right track.
With regards to that process, when you guys drafted him, and I know Mike said this when we spoke with him on Monday, he stressed that year one was learning, year two is where now he can start applying things that he learned. Where would you evaluate him on that plan you guys set forth a year ago?
Yeah, that's a good statement by Mike right there, and I do think he's on track, to being a player that we think can be a person that the opposing offense has to look at when they go in their scouting report that week and say, here's a guy we need to watch. Here's a guy we need a game plan for. But that has to be earned, and so that'll be the challenge for Travon this year, is that he has that ability, and then the application of some of the things that he's been taught. And really, to me, it comes down to consistent application of the things he's been taught. Because you'll see flashes, you'll see good, and then you'd see some things you didn't like as much last year. And nobody's ever going to be perfect, but the goal for this year would be to see the things that you like, and the efficiencies of his movement, the proficiency of the skills and the moves that he's working more regularly.
Bill, you've been in contact with Josh. Apparently, what are those conversations like right now?
Yeah, I've talked to Josh regularly. We talk a little bit of football, but sometimes we're just talking family and those type of things also. To me, it's the relationship built from last year and just keeping that thing moving forward also, even though not seeing him on a regular basis. But Josh and I have a good relationship. We do talk regularly. I know he's working really hard. I'm excited to see what he does this year, when he comes in, because I think to that point, my understanding, and I do believe that he's put himself in a good position to have a good year.
You expect him to be back here on Monday for mandatory minicamp?
I think I would think that we would, but again, that's going to be his decision. We're hopeful that he will be.
Is he working out locally though, as far as
He's been around. He's been a couple different spots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trent mentioned after the draft that you guys kind of want to add a change up at outside linebacker from some of the other guys. What really does Yasir bring to the table, just his kind of unique skill set?
Yeah, he does have a unique skill set, and I do think he's a change-up. I know Mike feels the same way about it, and so do I. Obviously, the stature, the size of the guy is different than some of the guys we have, but he is a powerful guy, even though he's not the tallest guy, not the biggest guy, but he's powerful. But that's not, you don't really get to see that in the spring because you're not in pads. So what you do see is you do see the speed, you do see the ability for him to turn the edge in the top corner of the pocket in the rush. What I'm really impressed about is how he applies himself and how hard he works, not just on the field, but off the field. Like, he's a consistent, he's always got good questions. He's wired in pretty good. He's working hard on the mental part of the game right now.
Is he a developmental guy right now, or is he a guy who you say, yeah, we can bring him in on third down this upcoming season?
I think that's yet to be determined. Watching somebody move around out here in just helmets, or at some point in time without even helmets, and then watching in full pads when the offensive line is taking sets and punching and grabbing and all that stuff, and in the run game too. I know you mentioned third down there. I mean, you'd like to think that he can contribute at some point in time, but again, that's got to be earned, and that's where we're trying to create competition in that room, where guys feel that, and we've got to bring out the best. Iron sharpens iron. I believe that, and I do believe that's something that has to be earned. And those guys got to put it on film when we go out to practice in training camp. We go to one-on-ones when we play preseason games. When we travel, in the preseason to go against different teams. The tape is gonna have to tell that story, and that'll be written here hopefully in a few months.
Back to Josh. What do you